question to you, Mr. Kaushik, so that will be helping us. So maybe know, in fact, what's your view on fear and how you are actually able to move towards fear to overcome the fear? So what's your view on the same, Mr. Kaushik?
Very, very interesting question, Prakash, and thank you for having me over here
Yes.
to discuss this very interesting subject, so relevant in our times right now with all my friends over here. So, yes, I mean, we all live in fear. We are living in fear right now, and it's something that is not going to go away. I mean, COVID might go away and things might change and so on. But, fear is not going to go away. And you have to learn
Yes.
to embrace fear and learn to live with fear. And you asked me about how do I do it. There are various things that I do to deal with it
Okay.
because this is a reality of life. But before I get into those specific things, which one can do to address this challenge of fear, let me talk about, some experiences that I have had with fear.
Oh, okay.
One of the most interesting ones was when about 2012, I came back. I was working abroad, and I came back to India to start up a company for a for an American multinational called USG India. So I set up USG India and built a business. It became 50 crores in the first year. I had a 3-year plan which was approved by the global board. We were going to invest about 500 crores, build a big business over here. And then about 1.5 years into that role,
Hmm.
my boss from Chicago called me
Okay.
and told me that they were going to merge my company with my competitor. So we had a
Oh.
competitor called Boral, and which was an Australian company. And the entire Asian business of USG was going to be merged with Boral
Hmm.
to form a joint venture. Now, Boral had a existence in India which was much longer. They had been around for more than 10 years. They were more than 3 times my size. I was just a startup. And they had an expat CEO who was heading the business over here. So it became very clear then that between the expat CEO of Boral and me, one of us would become the country head of this joint venture, and the other person would become jobless.
True.
So, and the decision was going to be made by the boss of my competitor, who was going to be the Asia Pacific head of this joint venture.
Hmm.
So that kind of left me cold at that point of time. I mean, I had to get chosen ahead of a expat CEO who had been in the job for a few years.
Hmm.
He was handling a business which was 3 times my size. And above all, the decision maker was his existing boss.
True.
I thought it was mission impossible, and there was a meeting scheduled with this person who was going to make the selection, but I couldn't focus my mind to prepare for that interview, for that meeting. I was thinking about what would happen if I became jobless, about the EMIs that I would need to pay, and my kids' studies, and so on and so forth.
True.
But before I tell you what I did, I must also tell you that I was involved in this sports called rappelling. I don't know if you have heard of this sports called rappelling.
Yes.
It's a sports in which you climb down a hill
Correct.
tied to a rope, and only thing that holds you from falling down is actually friction. So the friction in the rope holds you down. But the first time you jump from a cliff or from a high place, from a mountain, you jump and it's a leap of faith, and your body revolts against letting go. You don't want to jump, and you have to overcome a huge fear, a huge resistance of your body to make that leap. And then, of course, everything works out. Your Instructor tells everything happens as your instructor tells you. So I had done rappelling and I had overseen such things, which kind of allowed me to dig deep, find my resources, all of them inside me, prepare for this interview. And then I realized that I had a lot of strengths which my competitor didn't have, which I
Okay.
did not realize in the first go. For
True.
example, I knew the Indian market. I was an Indian. He was expat. I was actually from the industry. Found out he was not. And finally, to cut a long story short, I mean, the interview and the meeting with this global CEO and the board went off extremely well. And a week later, I found myself handling a business which was 4 times the size of business I was originally handling.
Okay.
But that meant managing this immense fear and navigating myself through it. And I learned a lot from it. It was one of the biggest lessons that I've had in my life.
Great.
So I just wanted to share this kind of experience with everybody over here because it's things like this which I think lead you
True.
to developing the resources within yourself to manage fear, which is not going to go away. We'll have to manage fear all our lives.
True. Very inspiringly shared, in fact, Mr. Kaushik. It's more about now, rather than fear of competition, it's becoming getting into more of collaboration now. So, bringing in collaboration and moving towards fear, overcoming fear. Yes, that's an excellent experience which is being shared. And I did like your rappelling story which you told, and that's a real-time experience where each person will definitely experience the fear within them. And once they do the rappelling, and I'm sure the fear automatically gets eases, and then we start getting more confidence. So that's one of the example of how do we really need to move towards fear to overcome it. Great
Absolutely.
contributions being shared. So that's where we share, in fact, in the meantime, before we go to the next question, members as well as the visitors, please feel free to turn on your videos as well so that we will be able to see you, and even the guests also will be able to see you. It will be really great. Yeah. So before we go to the next question, in fact, we all are understanding that there are people who want to really succeed on one side. So this is the right question, in fact. So one side people want to succeed, but the other side there are people who are having fear of failure. They want to succeed, but I should not fail, and that's called a fear of failure. So both are there. So what do you think, or what are steps do we need to take to overcome this thought process, Mr. Kaushik?
See, there are many things that we can do, but before I get once again into the techniques and stuff like that and the tools, the first and foremost thing to remember is the resources that are within ourselves. And I think one of the first things that one should do is ask oneself, how will I judge myself? Why do I exist? I mean, there is a saying about ships, actually,
True.
which says that a ship can stay in the harbor,
Hmm.
but was it built to stay in the harbor? Was the ship built to stay in the port? No. I mean, the answer is no. The ship was built to set sail.
Say.
The karma of the ship is to travel the seas. And therefore, the karma for us is to go on our own journeys, on our own voyages. And now, if you are a manager, that karma will involve taking risks.
True.
That's the journey, that's the voyage that you've chosen for yourself. So it's not an either or situation anymore. I mean, that's your karma, much like it's the karma of the ship to go on a set sail, it's our karma to take risks. The question is, how do we make sure that we come out successful in the risks that we take? And I can only talk about, somebody like somebody whom all of us, I think, admire and we have seen in recent times, somebody like Mahendra Singh Dhoni, who just takes all these unbelievable risks and seems to pull it off more often than not. He pulls it off more often than anybody else. Now, let me tell you why I think he is successful. I think there are three reasons why he's successful.
True.
I think he is successful because of preparation. The second reason is preparation. And the third
Okay.
reason is preparation.
Wow.
I mean, there is really no magic wand. I mean, you have to prepare. If I
True.
mean, they say if you fail to prepare, you must prepare to fail. So I think the secret to people like Mahendra Singh Dhoni's success is preparation. Now, for him, preparation may be practice and so on.
True.
For managers like us, for practicing managers like us, what preparation means is planning.
Plan. Okay.
I think planning is a key aspect of this whole set of management tools that can be leveraged to best manage fear. So you have to plan. You have to plan in detail. You have to do scenario building. You have to do what if analysis. And you have to plan, plan, and plan. The more detail into which you go in your planning, the more scenarios you build, the more what if analysis you do, the decision trees you make, the better equipped you are to handle the risks that you have to take. So there's no way you can avoid risks, but the way you can equip yourself to avoid risks is to have plans. Have a plan B, which is your safety net if it does things don't work out. And once you do that, it gives you immense self-confidence. You'll find self-confidence, coming in you. You'll see the faith coming inside you, and you're going to be strong because you've figured it all out in your mind first. So that's my answer, Prakash. I'm into this whole thing. I hope
Yeah,
it makes some
excellently
sense.
shared. I really like the point which you're talking about the karma. The karma of ship is what you told first. Then you connected that to karma of an individual human being is to take risk. And the more we get into taking risk is where the more we are able to overcome. And there are many fear in a people. In fact, honestly, every human being has fear, but as in fact, Kaushik, you've told wonderfully, but that's a part of our karma. But we need to start sailing, keep moving towards it, and that's when we will be able to start overcoming it. Great. So keeping that in our mind, two points, two questions you really answered. But there are a couple of more questions for which I request Mr. Devarayan, who is from the HR from ABB Hitachi, who's also part of our complete membership here. So he will be also be asking the next set of two questions. So Mr. Devarayan, I would request you to kindly unmute yourself and turn on your video, and please go ahead and also asking the next set of questions what you have to Mr. Kaushik.
Yeah, thanks, Prakash. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, you're audible.
Yes, you are, Mr. Devraj.
Yeah, thanks, Prakash. Thanks, Kaushik. Very glad that to ask questions to you. The first two set of questions which Prakash asked, I was so inspired, right? Actually, the way you see, we are talking about fear, and the way you are expressing with the confidence, I think people can get out of fear when they exit from this class, right? Or it's not a class, it's a session actually. Okay, so before getting into the question, I'll just I don't know you whether you have watched a movie called Tenali, it's all of fear for the actor Kamala Hassan, like, right, that fear, this fear, so all of them were fear for him. So similarly, so there are fears in the organization, like fear of audience when we speak about something, and the fear of success when you start something, and fear of boss when you go and approach him, and fear of heights when you go and work in the heights, and the fear of darkness, fear of losing money, so fear of new projects. So for something we will be very uh, experienced, but we are stepping into a new thing, new project which we are not experienced. There are a lot of fears. So what do you feel the root cause of all these fears? So might be some root causes will be there for any person, for every person, for this particular fears. So what do you think from your point of view, the root cause of these fears?
See, Mr. Devraj, I think the root cause, to be very direct, I think the root cause is the fear of unknown. It's the unknown, which the darkness. Nobody is fearful of light. We are always fearful of darkness. And why are we fearful of darkness? Because it's the unknown.
Yeah.
So the fear is the fear of unknown. It's the thing that you have not done. Like I was telling you about rappelling. I mean, now when I do rappelling, my body is tuned to rappel down, and I do it very fast. It doesn't, the muscles don't resist. But the first time I did it, it was not known to me, and my entire body was revolting. So we all know, today we are living in a world that is what we call volatile and ambiguous and complex, a VUCA world that we say. So what is going to happen in this kind of a world is that there is going to be more ambiguity. There is going to be more haziness. There is going to be more of the unknown. It's not going to be a stable world. It's going to become more and more complex and more ambiguous. And that will bring in more and more of the unknown. And the ability to deal with the unknown will be a capability that will become very, very important for all of us. We will all have to develop the capability to deal with ambiguity, to deal with the unknown. You see this with COVID now happening. I mean, we have to deal with the unknown. Even now, we didn't expect the second wave to come when it came, and we have to somehow respond and deal with it. So that's the way the world is moving. It's things are changing much faster than ever before. It's becoming more complex. It's becoming more volatile. So that's the root cause. I think it's uh, not a simple and easy thing. And we all have to, however, the first step is to recognize it, that the unknown is going to come. There is no way we are going to stay in our own little uh, village and know everything around us.
Yeah.
And we'll have to deal with it. And that is the root cause. It has to be dealt with.
Yeah. Thanks, Kaushik, for the wonderful answer. So one more question, like we are creating leaders or we are developing leaders. What kind of mindset we need to create in the leaders, or we need to create in people who develop as leaders, right? Like say for an example, now certain persons or certain leaders may think that only if you create a fear in your subordinates, create a fear in your team, so then they will obey you or you will get the work done. There are many kind of situations. So what do you suggest people to develop as a leader in this particular scenario?
See, I can cite two examples that I have been through personally regarding this in the various companies and organizations that I have worked for. I can very clearly, when I look back, think about them and kind of put them in two different buckets. One bucket is what I call organizations where I needed to take permission. I call them the permission organizations, because for everything that I needed to do, you needed to take permission from somebody to do it. And then there were this other kind of organizations, which are called as, I like calling them as forgiveness organization. And in those organizations, it's not important to take permission all the time. You can take your own initiative. You can make mistakes, and it's very easy to be forgiven. If it was an honest mistake that you made, they would forgive you. And of course, they wouldn't forgive you for mistakes related to integrity, for example. But if it was an honest mistake where you tried, you took an initiative, they would forgive you. And increasingly, I think, it is the forgiveness kind of organizations that are going to be the successful organizations of the future. organizations which foster experimentation, organizations which allow initiatives to be taken, because innovation is going to be absolutely critical to the success of organizations going forward. So, for all managers, if they are not able to foster an environment that allows innovation to happen, that allows initiatives to be taken, that that makes their people free to, to try out new things and make mistakes, honest mistakes, and learn from them. So we need learning organizations, we need experimenting organizations. And these organizations, the foundation can never be fear. If you have organizations, which in the past we used to have lots of them, which were permission-led organizations, and a lot of very traditional manufacturing-oriented organizations sometimes tend to be very, very permission-led organizations. They are going to find it more and more difficult to compete in the world in the coming future. So my message to all budding managers who want to be successful is figure out how you can build an environment where it is forgiveness rather than permission that prevails.
Yeah. Very well said, Kaushik. Actually, this is what the exact answer I was looking for. It's very, very good. Actually, see, you rightly said that the future companies will be dependent on the innovations. When you wanted to innovate, there are two sides. Always there are two sides. One is a failure, and one is a success. So the organization should be ready to accept both, and provided that's a honest, approach, the preparedness, planned well, executed well. But however, the result is not there. So the management has to accept it, or the manager has to accept the subordinates. So very well said, and it's a wonderful statement. Thanks, Kaushik, for that.
Thank you, Devraj.
Thank you. Over to you, Prakash.
So thanks very much, Devaran. That was really great. And Kaushik, I really liked what you have told is about forgiveness, and the companies which will survive are the companies who will develop a culture of forgiveness by their respective leaders. That means the leaders should start deploying or developing a capability of forgiving your respective subordinates, even if they have done a mistake, and specifically honestly they have done, and they have done a mistake by unknowingly they have done. So we need to. That's really likable by me. Wonderfully shared, Kaushik. Thanks very much for doing so. So yes, Mr. Kaushik. So now what we'll do is, now that we have shared most of your 2 points about how it has been, so now it's time for a quiz. So we'll just take 2 minutes time, and we're going to ask our members as well as visitors who are here today a quick quiz, and then we'll be taking it up. So before we get into the quiz, we also have Mr. Justin Babu here, who is also a passionate trainer and who's also been a coach. And Justin Babu is with us, who's also done rappelling, a lot of outbound training he does. Justin Babu does an activity called Firewalk, where he'll be able to, in fact, move or remove the fear by people. So that's the kind of a person Mr. Justin Babu is with us here. And why Mr. Justin Babu is here is he is the person who's going to give one of his book called Happiness in the Workplace. That's the book which is going to be shared by Mr. Arul. That's their Joyful and Happy Workplace. So members, we have Mr. Justin Babu is the author for this particular book. Since we have the topic one side called fear, and the other side we have another positive feeling which is called more happy. And Mr. Justin has written an excellent book on Joyful and Happy Workplace. And so I'm going to give Justin to 1 minute time to quickly share about what this book is all about, so that we give this particular book for our winner of the quiz. So Justin, here is for you, Justin. You're able to unmute yourself, Justin?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Prakash. Very good evening to all of you.
Yes.
Mr. Kaushik, that's wonderful. I mean, really insightful. And thank you so much for that. Okay. All right. So the reason why in the last 3 decades of my facilitation to various organizations in different industries, and I have also worked a lot of programs I have done along with Prakash, and I'm also an empaneled consultant with the organization. And thank you, Prakash, for that.
Thanks. Thanks.
One thing I noticed is fear stops people from connecting, communicating, collaborating. So I thought the 3C technique, which can, wherever I have been, there are few organizations who are very joyful and they have a stand-up meetings over a cup of coffee and quickly they chit chat and they have fun. And there you see a lot of productivity. And there are people who work in silos and there's disconnect, there's no communication, there's no collaboration, and everything becomes a big challenge in resulting in productivity at the same time having their goals in place. I mean, achieving their goals with a lot of motivation. So I thought I should write this book called Joyful and Happy Workplace because, okay, conflicts will be there, there'll be fear, there'll be all around, things will be happening. At the same time, is there a smile that we can bring in our people? A smile, a kind of a happiness which motivates people to do and go the extra mile in doing and accomplishing things, right? And that's the reason I have written. And there's a 3C technique, which is all about connect, communicate, and collaborate.
Wow,
Thank
that's
you.
excellent, Justin. So making it short, so that means to overcome fear. These 3 C's plays a very important role in your book, is what you're saying. That's really great. So that means you need to connect, you need to communicate, you need to collaborate. And one such experience of Mr. Kaushik was that, in fact, the first point, his life own experience was about collaboration. And that's when he's talking about the fear. Good, good. Thanks very much.
And the limiting beliefs, self-limiting beliefs stops people from taking up once a challenge is given to some team member, immediately he thinks, will I be able to do it? And he goes around and talks to his colleague and says, hey, always he gives me this, yeah, will I be able to do it? And that fellow says, oh, both of you can't do it. I think we won't be able to do it, but simply they have given, let's try. You know, so that attitude, limiting beliefs needs to be overcome. So I do a couple of adventurous framework, as Prakash knows, which is glass walk, fire walk, and rappelling and all those things. And Kaushik, I connect with you a lot on that. And thank you, Prakash. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks very much. So for the quiz for the day, I would request Mr. Rangarajan, who is the manager production from Nash Industries. So Rangarajan, it's over to you for quickly asking a quiz question. Go ahead, Rangarajan.
Thanks, Prakash, for the opportunity. It is very good. Fear is a highly thing to bring us out. We have many fears. So over to the question. I want the root cause of the fear, which Mr. Kaushik has told for us to come out. Faster fingers first. Let us get the answer from the people. People, we are ready. I think again, Sendil Kumar has tell the correct. Fear of unknown, darkness, ambiguity, hastiness is the correct answer. This week winner was Mr. Sendil. Over to you, Prakash.
Thanks very much, Rangarajan. So Sendil already has written a couple of points: fear of unknown, darkness, ambiguity, and hastiness. This is a couple of points. Great. So thanks very much, Sendil Kumar. You get the book from Justin Babu. The Happy Workplace, Joyful and Happy Workplace book is what you're going to get as complimentary, Mr. Sendil Kumar. Great. Members, type in congratulations in the chat box for Mr. Sendil, or you can either put a symbol of congratulations, though either you can do that. That's really great. So Sendil, since you have taken this up, so we give you an opportunity to ask a question to Mr. Kaushik. So go ahead, Mr. Sendil. You have any questions since you have been the winner?
Yeah.
Please introduce yourself first, and then you can go ahead
Yeah.
ask the question to Mr. Kaushik.
Happy evening, one and all. By the way, this is Senthil here. I've been working with Daimler since 12 years in HR department and learning and development profile. So right now, it's really taken a good opportunity to get acquaintancy of Kaushik Sarkar in today's leadership program, and really thank one and all to organize this event in a very harmonic way by taking accountability and responsibility to each and every members. It's really one and all more appraising and more giving applause to each and everyone. Really thank everyone for this Leader Connect forum. Kaushik, it was really eye-opener to see the stress and challenges how he faced in 2012 during the joint venture and the merger acquisition. But one question what I would like to ask you here is, suppose in case if the merging happened and if you were out of the track or out of the race, what would be your backup plan, or what was that that was running in your mind wise to get prepared to take care of your family and how to manage this EMI, which you were already mentioning it. So this would really help the complete forum, whoever is there in that today's Leaders Connect forum.
Yes, very interesting question, Senthil. Though, you know, in today's world, you have to prepare for the worst.
Correct. Correct.
And one of the key challenges is personal security. So I think one of the, you know, learnings, especially from that experience that I had, I mean, I had not really thought about it so much till then. I had been living abroad. I had earned reasonably well, but I had not really, you know, got around to creating what I call as a pot. But at that point of time, I really scraped the barrel here and there, and I created two pots, which now I have nurtured, and they have become a significant safety net for me. One was a pot which would see me through for at least 6 to 9 months if I was without a job, right? I would be able to pay my EMIs and survive and manage things. The other one was a pot that I started building up for my children's education, because that's something where you cannot really take too much of a risk. So once you are able to create this kind of let's say safety nets for yourself,
Yeah.
and really work on them. And I did that actually more after this experience, right? I mean, I made sure I did not spend all my money. I saved enough, and I put enough over there. But financial security is a cause of stress for many people, and it can hit you anytime. You know, you could in today's world become jobless at any time. So you have to have that safety net built for yourself so that you're not stressed out.
Great, that's nice.
Does that answer your question, Senthil?
Yeah. Yeah, the one of the key golden principle what you are bringing here is the earnings, whatever we do, should be saved properly in a well channelized way, such that it helps our family and children's. So like how you saved Aditya Sarkar.
Yes, absolutely.
True. So keeping in different pots, that's what he was specifying you more. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sendil, for asking that question, and congratulations once again for receiving the book Joyful and Happy Workplace from Mr. Justin Babu. And we will definitely give you the address. You can share it up later, and then he will be able to courier the book to you. Great.
Sure.
Thanks, Sendil. Thanks very much. So the members and visitors, we have, if you have any more questions, please feel free to ask now to our guest, Mr. Kaushik Sarkar. There are two ways you can ask questions. Either you can raise your hand so that we'll be able to unmute you so that you can ask the question to Mr. Kaushik Sarkar. Or if you feel that you want to type in the chat box and ask a question, Either way, we are okay. So feel free. Either way, we can ask questions to our guest, Mr. Kaushik Sarkar. So let's see if any questions are upcoming so that we all be able to take it up. In the meantime, let me also quickly take time to summarize what all is the discussion points, as the time is also pressing. So I would like to take a quick 1 minute time to summarize what all we have shared the experiences from Mr. Kaushik. We've been listening from Mr. Kaushik, and let me take a quick glance to it. So Mr. Kaushik, in fact, started off with the first question as how he's talking about the fear and what fear is all about. And his first experience was more about the fear in terms of collaborating with the company, and that's where Sendil has asked the question. But we've understood excellently that it is no more about a competition, it's more about collaboration, and especially when the companies are at the global level and collaborating there is a huge a mindset for which we need to have a shift, which is required, and that's where he started. And then move slowly from there is where we touched in terms of developing the resources within ourselves is required, is one of the key points which Mr. Kaushik says, which is necessary for us to understand whether are we really having a fear or how should we be more capable. So ask oneself that am I developing the resources within me to overcome the fear? And from there is where we move to the second question that there are one side success, other side we are having the fear of failure. Excellently shared is about the karma. The karma of for us is to keep continuously sailing, keep continuously taking risk. The more and more we are taking risk, and you may have a thought process about if we take risk, what? That's what you're talking about the failure. So he's saying that the more you take risk is where you'll be able to overcome it through. So wonderfully shared, and he did highlight about the P, which is preparation required. That's very rightly told, 3 P's, and he also added on to preparation plus planning. So if you do not have to have a fear of failure, we should have a preparation plus planning, which should be very strong, and that will really give more clarity is what he has told. And from there, we moved on to the next one, which talks about one of the very important fears. The root cause for fear is fear of unknown. So yes, fear of unknown is there, and very likable point, which is the need of the hour, which is being told that let's start developing capability to move towards the fear of unknown. And the next leadership capabilities of fear, overcoming fear should become one of the important competence. And that's where, in fact, Mr. Kaushik starts about, let's start developing or picking up a capability. It should be a capability building, and how it's possible is only one is by recognizing our own self that there is unknown, and then start living with it. And these 2 points which has been given and shared. And finally, the last question which is asked, and for which he has shared that what's a mindset we need to start taking to develop leaders. When we start talking about developing leaders, there are people who talk about if I only create fear in people, I'll be able to manage. Even there are people who are still existing, but future is all about, it is not creating fear in our subordinates, only then we will manage them. The future is all about subordinates will make mistakes, allow them to make mistakes, bring in more innovation, and one of the important points, start developing the capability of forgiving your subordinates. And that's when we will be able to move towards the fear, to overcome the fear. And these all the factors we'll be able to overcome, which is being shared. And here on the screen, you're able to see the 5 basic elements of leadership. And today, what we have discussed by Mr. Kaushik is also here in the mass leadership, the 5 basic elements, which Mr. Kaushik spoke about. Forgiveness, which is about productive habits. And fear is about a negative feeling, which is NF. So the more and more we are moving towards the fear by using our productive habits like forgiveness, and you need to understand more self, and using our skills like planning and preparation, we will start be able to overcome ourselves towards the fear. So these are the points, and summarizing it. So thanks very much, Arul, to share the screen. Kindly stop the screen so that we'll be able to take up one question which is there in the chat box, I believe, which has come. Oh, that's not a question. I believe that's the Sendil has written the summary of all. Okay, thank you very much, Sendil, for the summary which you have written. So, members, any other questions if you have, that will be really great to ask our guest. If not, we will be coming to an end. So, if you have, please do raise your hand. So, I believe it's all done. That's really been very nicely shared, Mr. Kaushik. We really enjoyed your session. It's been really great interacting with you, giving us real-time scenarios which you've given us. So good one. So what is one last message you would like to share to our community members here, Mr. Kaushik?
So thank you for having me, Prakash. It was very interesting for me also to interact with our friends over here.
Yes.
The message that I would like to leave everybody with is that fear is something that some psychologists even talk of fear as being something like a fantasy. So we don't know what fear is. I mean, they say it's a fantasy of something which could be real or could not, may not be real. It may or may not be happen. We start fantasizing that the worst will happen, and it may happen, but equally it may not happen. But however, the human mind tends to latch on to the worst case scenarios, and you get into a situation of paralysis because of that, because you are fantasizing the worst case scenario. And in cases like that, I mean, people talked about techniques earlier. I said I'll say something about it. So this is the time to talk about it now. I think one very important technique that you can use is meditation. So there are various ways to do meditation, yoga, and stuff like that. Mindfulness is something that a lot of people talk about. So it's very, very useful. So one technique that you could consider to equip yourself to deal with fear is meditation. The other one I briefly referred to rappelling earlier is adventure sports or extreme sports. So try your hand out at extreme sports, adventure sports, do them occasionally. They build the inner strength in you to deal with fears. So meditation on a regular basis, once in a while, and extreme sports, these kind of things help you deal with fear a lot. The second thing about fear is that it's a very normal thing, fear. Fear is the reaction of your body to something unknown.
True.
Right? That's all it is. It is supposed to save you.
Yes.
I mean, you feel fear because, when we lived as in the caves and a tiger appeared, we needed to run. And that's why we needed to have fear. If we didn't have fear, we would not run away and save ourselves. So that's where fear comes from. It's a tool to protect ourselves, and it has allowed us to grow. So it's a very positive thing, actually. And we need to think of it as a tool.
Yes.
Don't curb fear. You have to channelize fear. It's not bad for us. It's good for us. I mean, you have to just channelize that energy.
Yeah.
And things that will help you are meditation, extreme sports, and stuff like that. And finally, all this comes to something that I personally am a great fan of, a quote given by Robert Kennedy, who talked about this during the time he had a standoff with Russia. And he said, we do not fear to negotiate. I mean, the Russians were going to attack. So he said, we do not fear to negotiate, but we will not negotiate out of fear.
Wow.
Right? So that's the spirit that we need to have. We will not do anything out of fear, but we will not be afraid.
Great.
So that's the message I want to leave you with. When you are well equipped, you don't need to be afraid, but you should not be afraid to negotiate. You should not be afraid to venture out. You should not be afraid to take risks. But don't take risks out of fear.
Wow, that's an excellent message, Mr. Kaushik shared. And what I like really is channelize the fear. So fear is a positive feeling. Let's take it and channelize it appropriately which will give you the confidence 2 times, 3 times, or 10 times. And really like what you said, the sports activities, the yoga part, wonderful. That's a great message. And I'm sure members, please type who all are going to follow these with respect to what technical fact is shared about channelizing fear, and especially the yoga part, mindfulness part. Let's look at it. Let's see how many yeses are coming in the chat box. Are we all agreeing with Mr. Kaushik on all these points, what he told? If there's type yes in the chat box, let's see how many yeses are coming on the chat box. Yeah, that's great. Wonderful. Thanks. That's really been great. So it's an excellent insightful message you have received. So members, the only request is go back to apply. Very necessary is we all are aware about these points. Now, the only point where Mr. Kaushik gains his expertise is he has been demonstrating all what he has been doing, and the demonstration is able to give him such huge confidence. So let's go back to demonstration, and that's what we need to be doing. So thank you very much, Kaushik. So before we end, I would like to share the next week what we have, members and visitors here. So next week, let me be open sharing. Mr. Kaushik, every month, the last week, Wednesday, we have reflection session. Reflection is every Wednesday, the leader who has come in, all the points are being taken into consideration and the learnings are being shared in the reflection session by our members, and we interact more deeper about how it has been. So that's what we do, so that we also share action plans and are we able to go back and deploy in the respective organizations. So members, here are the 4 leaders who we have undergone in this month of April. We have Ms. Gauri Das sharing about consistency in achieving results. We also had then Ms. Rani from Wipro, who was talking about getting more influencing stakeholders. And then last week, we also had Mr. Gerald Jaideep about the target versus truth. And today, Mr. Kaushik Sarkar's topic, moving towards fear to overcome fear. So let's collect all these points, learnings, and put it on our respective logins. Let's take an action plan next week and share how we are going to go back to deploy in our respective personal or professional life, which is going to really help us in a constant growth in your respective leaders role. So thanks very much, Arul, for sharing that particular slide. That really helps. So great members as well as visitors. It's nice being you all with here. Once again, Kaushik, thanks very much. And we have one last thanking video, which we'd like to share as a token of gratitude. So let's see a quick thanking video alone now. Thanks one and all for being in here, and thank you very much again, Kaushik sir. That's been really great and insightful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prakash and everybody else.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Devraj.
We'll meet again. Yes.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Kaushik. Everybody,
Thank you very
bye-bye.
much.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Devraj. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care. Take care.
Bye.